This afternoon, Hollywood is paying tribute to an icon of 20th century cinema. Val Kilmer passed away at the age of 65, and the actor spent his final years of his life battling throat cancer, but most remember him for his talent, heartthrob good looks, and his starring roles in movies like Heat, Top Gun, and Batman Forever. He wanted to be known as a serious actor. Val Kilmer attended Juilliard, spent time acting on stage, and in an interview with CNN's Larry King, Kilmer said he saw his craft as a serious means of exploration.
Have you ever turned down something you regretted?
No, I don't really think that way. I just look forward. And also, what in the personal way, what I gained from acting, the opportunity to experience things that certainly you'd never do in your own life.
Our medical expert, Dr. Pyle Coley, is here to share some reaction to Val Kilmer's death. You know, we learned today that he died of pneumonia, so let's kind of start there. Everybody knows someone who's had pneumonia, but talk specifically about what that means and how that disease can, potentially kill you.
What a tragic loss, right, for our community. I mean, what a talented actor. So my thoughts are certainly with his family, but pneumonia is an infection in the lungs. So you think about what our lungs do. They put oxygen into our blood and they take out carbon dioxide. So if they fill up with fluid, when it happens during pneumonia, you can imagine you can die from respiratory failure, but that infection can also spread to the bloodstream and cause sepsis or shock, which can cause organ failure.
Wow. And I think of, if you saw that documentary he did a couple years ago, it was very powerful, and he really did pull the curtain back on his battle with throat cancer. So did his battle with throat cancer in some way hurt his chances with beating pneumonia, or can both be true?
I'm glad you brought that up, Sam, because he struggled with throat cancer. He got the most aggressive treatment. He got chemotherapy, radiation, and something called a tracheostomy. So when you have surgery for throat cancer, the throat cancer can be the back of the throat, but it can also be the vocal cords. They remove your vocal cords and put in a tube in there, a hole in your neck that allows you to breathe. Now you think about what our vocal cords do. They protect our lungs from our secretions, like our saliva. So if somebody has a tracheostomy, first of all, it's a foreign body in the trachea. It can be colonized with bacteria. Secondly, your lungs are not as protected. You can have something called aspiration, where contents from the mouth or the stomach can actually go into the lungs and cause pneumonia. Now, we don't know in Val's case exactly what he had, whether it was aspiration, bacterial, fungal, something else, and we don't know what caused his death from the pneumonia, but certainly that increased his risk of having a chronic tracheostomy.
When he was diagnosed with throat cancer in 2014, so he lived with the tracheostomy for a long time. Is that normal? Is a tracheostomy permanent? Is it something that can be reversed? How does that work?
So we use it in both ways. If somebody has a temporary infection where they're going to be on a ventilator for a long time, we sometimes put it in and then ventilate them, because you don't want it going through the mouth and sedating them for a long time. And then we take it out and it heals over. But in his case, if you're actually removing any part of the anatomy up there, then you might have to leave it in permanent. But it does increase your risk for chronic complications and colonization. And to your point, he did live for a very long time with it. We don't know exactly what increased his risk. It's not the most common cancer out there, but we have over 50,000 Americans a year who get diagnosed with it. And there are risk factors for it that we could potentially control.
What are those risk factors?
So any toxins we put inside our body, so think about environmental exposures, think about cigarette smoke, think about alcohol, think about chronic heartburn or reflux. So when small amounts of acid come up from our stomach into our throat, that's actually causing inflammation and changes. And one of the most common risk factors that I don't think we're controlling well enough is HPV infection, human papilloma virus. And especially now that people are more sexually active, if you're not getting vaccinated and you get a high-risk HPV infection in your mouth or throat, that can certainly increase your risk for oral cancer.
Oh my God.
I know.
Just putting that all together. So what should we be doing to prevent? I mean, you said a lot of things just from environmental, aspects. What can your average person be doing to try to mitigate getting throat cancer?
So alcohol and cigarette smoke. I mean, don't start if you haven't started. A glass of wine a day is not good for the heart. It's not good for any of the organs. But if you are going to drink alcohol, keep it in real moderation. Check your HPV status. If you're young, you can actually get a vaccine for HPV, the high-risk types. The vaccine is 90% effective against the most high-risk types. So vaccinate your kids, both male and female. And if you're older and you think you've had a high-risk HPV, or your partner has a high-risk HPV and you may have been exposed, then talk to your doctor about your risk as well, because there are things that you can do to monitor a little bit more closely if you have that. It's one of those cancers that's really tough to deal with because you get radiation, you get a lot of pain. It affects the way you eat, it affects the way you talk. So certainly his struggle with it has been inspirational.
Wow. Oh, Dr. Coley, thank you. And our heart definitely with his family.